Not all math problems will require you to solve for x and y only. Sometimes, it also requires you to get the factor of a certain number. And what we mean if we say factor is that numbers that if you multiply together will give you a certain number. Let's say you have the number 10. So, since 10, its factors are positive negative 1, positive negative 2, positive negative 5, and also positive negative 10. Because if we multiply 2 and 5, it will result to 10. And thus, the factors of 10 could be 2 and 5. Same is true with negative 1 and negative 10. Negative 1 times negative 10 will also lead or result to 10, positive 10, because negative times negative is positive. Same is true with polynomials, because polynomials have also factors or expressions, two or more expressions that if you multiply together will result to what they are now. Example, suppose we have x squared plus 2x plus 1. Its factors are x plus 1 and x plus 1. And thus, not only constants have factors, polynomials also do have. In this video, we will talk about factoring polynomials. So polynomials are those expressions that are composed of algebraic terms. So when we say algebraic terms, it could be a combination of constant and a variable. So the constant, we call that coefficient, and the variable is the variable that changes. It could be x squared, x cubed, x to the fourth, and so on. Also, this coefficient could be negative. And then if we combine that to other terms, so these are terms. Terms are separated by plus and minus. So this is another term. If the term is a number alone, that we call that constant. And if it is combined with a number, that's still a algebraic term. So suppose we have this example, x squared plus 2x plus 1. What are two numbers that when we multiply together will give us the constant, which is 1, and then if we add together will give us the coefficient of the linear degree or the linear term, or the 2x will give us the coefficient of it, which is 2. So what are those? First, think of factors of 1. What are two numbers that when you multiply will get to 1? It's only 1, right? And thus, how will you get 2? So you just have to add the 1 and 1. So you have 2. And therefore, now that you satisfy these conditions that when you multiply it will give you 1 and when you add will give you 2, you can now have the factors, which are x plus 1 and x plus 1. So as easy as that. That's sum and product. So our next example would be x squared minus 2x minus 8. And again, our goal is to find two numbers that if we multiply together will give us negative 8. And if we add, will give us negative 2. So those numbers are negative 4 and positive 2. Because negative 4 times 2 is negative 8. And negative 4 plus 2 is negative 2. So now, our answer, or the factors of x squared minus 2x minus 8 are just x minus 8 and x minus 2. So if you check, it will lead us back to x squared minus 2x minus 8. So our next example is this one. 2x squared minus x minus 10. So go ahead, pause this video and try it yourself if you can get the factors. So are you done? So notice that the coefficient or the coefficient of the term which has the highest degree, 2, of our example is no longer 1. So the degree of this is no longer 1, but rather greater than 1. So notice here and here, the coefficients were just positive 1. But here, we have positive 2. So how do we solve it now? So the technique here is what they call AC method. So determine what's A, what's C, and what's B. So they said that all you need to do is find two products or two numbers that will give us the product of A and C. In this case, A is 2 and C is negative 10. So we need to find two numbers that if you multiply together will give us negative 20. And then, if we add together those numbers we're talking about, will give us B, or in this case, B is negative 1. So that's the method, AC method. So let's think, what are those two numbers? So the factors of 20 could be 4 and 5. So if 5 is negative and then 4 is positive, clearly if we multiply it, it will give us negative 20. And if we add this, will give us negative 1. And so it satisfies what we need. So those numbers are negative 20 and negative 1. But we're not done yet. Those are not yet the factors. So after knowing the two factors, the two numbers, all we need to do is break this inner term or break the B term into two, which are the numbers we found out. So those numbers are negative 5 and positive 4. So just make it 5x and 4x, whatever this variable is. So minus 5x plus 4x, and then here, just copy to x squared. So again, all we did is find two numbers that will give us 20, the product of A and C. And then if we add, will give us B, which is negative 1. So here are the numbers, negative 5 and 4. And then we break up negative bx. So that's it. Then after, the next step is to group. So this group and then this group. And then factor out what's common to them. So here, what's common? I think the common among them or between these two terms is x. You see that? Do you see that as well? Here's x. Here's x. Then here's x. And so if we factor out x, 2x squared will become 2x. And then 5x will become negative 5. So because if you multiply x to 2x, it will become 2x squared. And x to negative 5, it will become negative 5x. So these are the factors of this left side. Then for the right side, what's common between these two? Common is 2. So positive 2. And if you divide 4x by 2, it will give you 2x. And if you divide negative 10 by 2, it will give you negative 5. And so if you multiply 2 back to the parenthesis, will give us 4x and then minus 10. So now, again, factor out what's common. So the common in these two terms, so this is only one term and then one term, is 2x minus 5. So if I pull out 2x minus 5 to this term, I'm gonna left with x. So the remaining will be only x. And for this term, the remaining is just only 2. So now we've got the factors, which are 2x minus 5 and x plus 2. So that's how we get the factors of an expression or a polynomial with its coefficient of x squared is greater than 1. So our next example is 3x squared minus 7x plus 4. So again, use this method above from the previous example and try it yourself and get the factors of this expression. So are you done? If yes, let's start and see if you got it right. So, I need to find two numbers that will give me 12, because 3 and 4 AC, and will give me negative 7. So those are negative 3 and negative 4. So with that, break it down. Negative 3, I'll break down negative 7 into 2, negative 3 and negative 4x. Or you can also interchange that if you want. Doesn't matter, because as you get the common terms, it will get factored out. So that's alright. So 3x squared and then plus 4. So what's common here is x. And then what's left is 3x minus 4. And then here, there's no common, so just simply write it down. And notice that if you pull this out, what you're gonna left is just 1. Because 3x minus 4 times this is just 1. So if I pull out 3x minus 4, I'm gonna left with x and then negative 1. So x minus 1. So these are now the factors of this term. Alright? So that's it. As easy as that. So, if you wanna try another example, let's have another example. So here's our next example. This time it's in cubic form. The expression or the polynomial is now cubic polynomial. So come on, try it yourself if you can get the factors of this polynomial. Done? If you have no idea how to do this, the technique or the method is just still factoring by grouping. So, first things first, all you need to do is check this term divided by this term if equal ba to this term divided by this term. So what I mean by that is 3 divided by the coefficient of this term, which is 1. Kung equal ba to negative 12, this term divided by coefficient of this divided by negative 4. So 3 divided by 1 is 3. And negative 12 divided by negative 4 is 3. And thus they are equal. So with that simple way to check, you're safe to say that they have common. So you can factor out common on this group and in this group. So 3x squared and x cubed, their common terms are x squared. So we're gonna left with x plus 3. Right? From here, you go here. And then for this group here, minus 4x and minus 12. So if you pull out negative 4, you're gonna left with negative x. Positive x. And then if you pull out negative 4 from negative 12, you get positive 3. Because negative 4 times 3 is negative 12. So that's it. So now we got the factors. X plus 3 and x squared minus 4. And since this term here is a special product, this is the difference of two squares. If you wanna know how to, if you wanna know what are those special products, check out my other video about it. So it would then be equal to x plus 4 and x minus 4. So these are the complete factors of this polynomial above. So that's it. Next, and I guess our final example is this. X cubed minus 4x plus x plus 6. Or this is 4x squared. So now, the first step is check. Negative 4 divided by 1 is negative 4. While 6 divided by 1 is 6. This time, negative 4 and 6, they're not the same. So now, how can we factor by grouping? So the answer here is find the factors of the coefficient and factors of the constant. So 6 has a factor of 1, -1, 2, -2, 3, -3, and 6, -6. And for this one, since this coefficient is 1, its only factor is just positive and -1. So now, we'll use the method they call syntactic division to check whether, before that, let's substitute one by one these terms and check whether the polynomial will become 0. And if it does, with this number, let's say for example, I plug in 2 to x, then the polynomial becomes 0, then that's one of the factors. So again, let's try. If I plug in, let's try 1, so it will become 1 cubed minus 4 1 squared plus 1 plus 6. So this is 5, this is minus 4, and this is 1. So -4 plus 6 isn't 0, so 1 isn't a factor. So let's try -1. So -1 and -1 here. 1 minus 4 times 1, or -1 is still 1. So 4 minus 4 plus, this one will become -1 because that's x. So it will become -1 plus 6. So 1 minus 4 is -3 minus 1, -2 plus 6 still isn't 0. So -5 plus 1, -4. So let's try positive 2. So positive 2, 2, and then 2. So 2 cube is 8. And then 4 times 4 is 16. So plus 2 plus 6, this is 8. Then 8 minus 16 is -8. And thus it will be equal to 0. Therefore, positive 2 is one of the factors. So x plus 2 is one of the factors. So with that, we're gonna use syntactic division to solve for the unknown, for the other factors. So 2, and then get the coefficients of this polynomial. So 1, -4, 1, and 6. So bring down 1. 1 times 2 is 2. -4, you combine it with 2, so -2. Then times 2, it's -4. And then -4, and then 1 is -3 plus 1. That's the -3 times 2 is -6. So this is 0. So one of the factors, if this is x cubed here, this time it will become x squared. So one of the factors are x squared minus 2x minus 3. So di, ang atong factors are this x plus 2. This is x minus 2 times x squared minus 2x minus 3. So this is it. That's how we factor out or get the factors of polynomials that can be factored by grouping. And if you want, you can still factor this out, I guess. -3. Find two numbers that if you multiply will become -3 and add -2. So I think it's -3 and positive 1. And so our factors, so -3 times 1 is -3, and -3 plus 1 is -2. So factors are x minus 3 and x plus 1, and then x minus 2. So these are the factors. Ta-da! And in summary, before we end, number 1 is check if you can use the sum and product method. So the sum and product method tells you that you need to find two numbers that when you multiply together will result to the constant, and if you add together will result to the coefficient of linear degree, or the x with one exponent. Second is, if you cannot do the sum and product method, try by using completing the square. So this is another method of factoring quadratic. So for quadratic pa ni siya. Completing the square. So if you cannot also complete the square, you have the other option, which is the quadratic formula. And this is all for the quadratic, or terms with the highest degree of 2. So the highest degree is 2. And then for cubic, what you need to do first is check if you can factor. So check if you can do factoring by grouping. Factoring by grouping. So by that, if you cannot do factoring by grouping, you'll have the second option, which is the syntactic division. What if we have x squared minus 2x plus 8, or let's say positive 2x? So what are the two numbers that if we multiply together will give us 8, and then if we add will give us 2? So what are those? The factors of 8 are 4 and 2. Let's begin with 1, positive, negative 1. These are the factors of 8. So positive, negative 1, positive, negative 2, positive, negative 4, and then positive, negative 8. So if we multiply 2 and 4, we'll get 8. And so, what is the sign would be, or what will be the operation? Is it addition or subtraction, so that we can get positive 2? So I guess one number should be negative, and then the other should be what? Positive? Or should we let the other number positive, the bigger one, and then the other to be negative? So I think this is alright, because 4 minus 2 will give us 2. So we satisfy it, and 4 times 2, negative 8. Oh no, it's not matching. Didn't match. So by this time, sum and product won't work on this example. And so what we're going to do is to try completing the square, or quadratic formula. So if we complete the square, all we have to do is divide this term here with 2x, divide its coefficient by 2, so it will give us 1, and then square it, then just copy this constant plus 8, and then subtract the square. So divide this by 2 will give 1, and then subtract that to this term. So we've got x plus 1 squared plus 7. So this is now the simplified form, or the factored form of the above expression. So let's check if it will give us x squared plus 2x plus 8. So if I expand x squared plus x plus 1 squared, it will give us x squared plus 2x. So this term, then this term. So 2x plus 1, and then plus 7. So you see, x squared plus 2x plus 8. So it gives us back the original expression we want. So this is the method of completing the square. Again, what you did was just divide the coefficient by this coefficient by 2. So it will become 2 over 2. So x squared plus 2 over 2x. And then add or subtract the answer. So 2 times 2, and then square it, and then subtract it to 8. This one, that term, this term here. So that becomes negative 1. So here. So that's completing the square. And also, we can use the quadratic formula, which says x is equal to, or the root is equal to, plus minus, or negative b plus minus square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. So we just have to identify a, b, and c. So in this, A is here, B is 2, and C is 8. So since there is no coefficient of x squared, automatically its coefficient is 1. So A is 1, so 2 times 1. And then negative, our B is 2. So the B is 2. Then plus minus. So B is 2. So 2 squared minus 4AC. So 4 times 1 times 8. Our C is 8, this term. And so with that, we can see that the discriminant is negative because 4 minus 32, the larger number, will give us negative. So that would be negative 28. The negative 2 plus minus 2. So if the discriminant is negative, that will definitely tell us that the roots of this expression is imaginary. So if we draw its graph, for example, this is its graph. Since this graph won't touch the x-axis, that is why its roots is negative. It has an imaginary roots. So the roots refers to x-intercepts or the points where the graph touches the x-axis. This example here is a special case of cubic polynomial wherein it needs special properties so you can factor this out. So that special property I'm talking about is what they call special products of polynomials. So if you want to know more about that, I have separate videos discussing those special products. So better check that out so that you can use it in factoring cubic polynomials of this kind of form. So for this example, to factor this out, you need the knowledge of this one. If the term is, let's use another letter. If the term is sum of two cubes, then basically its factors are a plus b times a squared minus ab plus b squared. So this is the equivalent. So in this case, our a is x. So a equals x. So it's in the term x cubed. So a cube is, our a cube is x cubed in this case. And for 8 is the product of 2 times 2 times 2. So 2 cubed. This time, this is the equivalent of our case. So here, hope you see it. This x cubed, this is the equivalent in this a cube plus b cube form. So now, we just have to use this form so that we can now get the factor. So it is said a plus b. Since our a is x and then our b is 2, so our first factor is x plus 2. Then our next factor is a squared. So our a is x and thus it's x squared. Then minus. So our a is x and then our b is 2. So here b. So 2. Or you can just write it as 2x. Then finally, b cubed. Here, b cubed. B squared. So our b is 2. So it's just 2 squared. So 2 squared is equal to 4. So this is now our factor. It's x plus 2 times x squared minus 2x plus 4. So that's it for this video. And thanks for watching. Peace out.